Here we go. Today on That Was the Way It Was,
we'll share some little-known facts about the things we grew up with.
Including drive-in theaters and the beloved transistor radio.
Also, we'll remember the days when getting a dark suntan was harmless summer fun.
Plus how the once sexy waterbed lost its charm.
Ooh, you're listening to That Was the Way It Was.
Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bates in Los Angeles, along with Lauren Leibowitz, my cohort in crime.
That's right.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Glad you're here again. We
I know.
dug up some interesting facts about the stuff you're going to remember. All of you will remember this stuff. Plus, we've got a quiz later from the year 1978.
Oh.
Where were you in 1978?
That's going back. A junior in high school.
Junior in high school. Were you popular?
Hello.
Of course
What
you
a
were.
question. Of
What a
course.
question.
So let's get started with the ultimate teenage date night, a trip to the drive-in theater.
Oh, yeah.
I so remember that, but not as a teenager.
Only sat in the back seat with my parents in the front, and I could barely see anything.
Did you wear your pajamas?
I did, and I slept in the back.
I know.
Halfway through the movie, I was asleep.
Really? My first movie was Mary Poppins, and I had the little feet, the pajamas that had the feet in them.
Yeah.
And it was in the summer because I took my pillow. Being in Pennsylvania, you had the drive-in theater only in the summer.
And were you fascinated?
Oh, absolutely, because they had the speakers so you could hear the movie that clipped onto the front windows of the car. You had to manually roll down the windows.
So it hung on the glass.
It did. It hung on the
hung
glass.
on the glass, yeah.
The first drive-in theater opened in Camden, New Jersey in 1933. Mm-hmm. And it was invented by Richard Hollinghead, who worked at a family auto parts store. Very interesting, right?
Okay.
And the first drive-in, he was inspired by his mother's struggle to sit comfortably in a traditional movie theater seat. So he eventually opened up the park-in theater, charging 25 cents per person and then 25 cents per car, with no group paying more than $1.
Yeah, that was the going rate in the beginning.
Right.
Not bad. $1 to get a whole bunch of your friends into the theater. Yeah.
Well, you know what they would do in the 60s? They would hide some of the people in the trunk of the car.
Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah.
$1? I'm
And then-
sorry.
I know. It's hardly worth it.
I know.
And the exhaust fumes in the back. And what if they forgot and they left you in there?
No, who could hear the knock, 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 right? Crazy. So there were some rules in drive-in theaters. So you had to turn off your headlights.
Yeah.
And you had to drive slowly with parking lights on about 5 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And then you had to watch out for kids. And you couldn't leave your engine running while you were watching the movie.
They often had a little ramp in each parking spot, so your car would tip up ever so slightly, so it was, aimed up toward the screen.
Really? I didn't have that.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't have that in yours?
No, it was just a flat parking lot.
There were some bad things that happened in drive-in theaters, I'm sure.
Well,
I bet
the same-
children were conceived.
The same things that kind of happen at, Lookout Point,
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Same kind of thing. I never experienced
Oh,
any of
please.
that. I missed that
The-
whole thing.
I'm sure that's a whole other show. Well, the most popular drive-in name was Starlight Drive-In. In fact, there are only about 10 drive-in theaters.
10 drive-in theaters in all of the United States with the name Starlight Drive-In.
Isn't that a bowling alley, too? Starlight Bowl?
I feel like we have one in L.A. someplace, a
Like
Starlight,
Starlight Bowl.
I'm not really sure why people stopped going to drive-in theaters, to be honest with you.
I don't know, but think about it then. You didn't need a babysitter because the mother, who was often busy with household responsibilities and children, could get her a little respite and get some entertainment because the children were with her. They were occupied. There was the concession stand that had the
Yeah.
great, hamburgers, popcorn, whatever you wanted to eat and drink. So it was a nice evening for the family.
And if the kids got tired, they could just fall asleep in
Throw
the
them in the
back seat.
trunk, right?
Throw them in the trunk. Okay, let's move on to our next topic today. One of the things I remember more than any other thing I wanted for Christmas, and that was a transistor radio. A transistor radio is a small portable radio receiver that was introduced in 1954 by Regency Electronics. Now, they figured a way to use small transistors instead of those big vacuum tubes. Because they were so small, people could put them in their pocket. They could take them to the store.
Right.
They could drive around their car with the transistor radio. So you could listen to music. You could listen to the game wherever you went. They all ran on those 9-volt batteries. In fact, I think 9-volt batteries may have been invented
Because of the transistor?
because of the transistor
Exactly.
radio.
That's right.
Listeners sometimes would hold their entire transistor radio to their ear and walk around like this. It was kind of like the boombox of the early days, but instead of on your shoulder, you'd hold the little transistor radio to your ear. Most radios included earphone jacks and came with those single earphone
Little buds.
little earbuds.
Yeah.
And the sound was pretty terrible. The original transistor radio cost $49, which would be about $350 today. So think about that. If you're a kid and you're dreaming of getting a transistor radio for Christmas, you may have to wait a while because they were expensive in the beginning.
So did you get one?
I finally did. By the time I got them, they weren't $49 anymore. They were much, much cheaper. I grew up in Indiana, and late at night you could pick up WLS from Chicago. WLS Chicago. And I remember just being so excited. Here I was in a little town in Indiana, and I was hearing these big DJs with the echo in their voice booming out from 50,000 watt station in Chicago. And it was just so exciting.
Did you have a case for yours? A leather case?
Yeah, they did have a leather case.
With a little handle, like a leather handle that you would attach to your luggage, like a luggage tag, that had a little compartment where you could store the earpiece.
Yes, they had that. And it was cool because there was a cutout for the window where you'd read the numbers on the dial.
Yes.
Yeah. The leather case had the window too, so you could snap it shut.
Exactly.
To protect it.
That I remember. Who had that? I think my grandfather had one.
Yeah. Top 40 radio was the big thing most people listened to. Games, of course, as well. Anyway, I've got lots of love for the transistor radio.
Next up, before we knew how bad it was something we all wanted. A suntan. My family moved from Pennsylvania to Palm Springs, California. The desert. And
you moved from Pennsylvania,
yes,
where you were pasty pale all winter.
Yes, that's correct.
To Palm Springs, California, where you could, any time of the year, have a bronzy glow.
And yes, you see where this is going, right? So that was my after-school activity, was to lay out by the pool and slather myself with either Bain de Soleil, the orange gel that you would put on.
Was Bain de Soleil supposed to give you color as well, or was it?
They have different products. This one was the tanning, the sun tanning, but it did have an orange layer to it, so it was kind of...
It colored you a little.
It colored you a little, and it rubbed off on many things. Or the one thing that really worked was Hawaiian Tropics, the coconut oil.
Coconut oil, I do remember that.
Yeah, but at suntans, they were not always popular.
No.
In ancient Rome, Romans used chalk to whiten their face. And during the Renaissance and Elizabethan era, women would use lead-based white paints to get a pale porcelain complexion.
So in those days, if you wanted to look rich, you wanted to look pale. And then later, when the suntan became popular, rich people were the people who went away on these Mediterranean vacations and came back with the suntan.
Here's an interesting fact. It was in 1923 when fashion icon Coco Chanel captured everyone's attention after returning to Paris with a suntan after vacationing on the Riviera. So she was...
so it took somebody who was considered a fashion icon to tell everybody, hey, people, it's okay to have a suntan.
It's okay, right. And then 4 years later, British Vogue featured the first tan faces in the magazine. So, of course, the magazine have always and continue to tell you how you should look, be, wear, all that kind of thing.
And ever since then, that glowy brown suntanny look has certainly been popular. Regardless of whether it's safe to do, which it isn't.
No.
It still is a fashion thing, isn't it?
And then British Vogue featured faces of suntan people in their magazine for the world to see. And that made it...
Everybody liked it then.
They thought, why not?
Yeah.
And
do you remember the pink lipstick they used to wear with the tan? They'd wear dark tan and then pink lipstick.
Oh, but that's very South Florida. That's very Miami Beach.
Now,
I remember that, right?
Yeah.
They people have the Jewish grandmothers would have dark, a tanned face and that coral lipstick. Oh my God, that's a whole other topic, talking about Florida. Hello there, gorgeous. Okay, and here's an interesting fact. John Harvey Kellogg, the guy who invented corn flakes, created the first tanning bed. How do you like that?
What was that for?
It was to cure skin conditions, and he even sent it to the British royal family. In the 1963 classic, Cleopatra, Elizabeth Taylor was doused in bronzing powder, and the fashion world took notice.
They thought that was fashionable because Elizabeth Taylor was so beautiful that if people wanted to look like her. So
That's true.
they said, well, let me just
Let's
get a
do
tan. We'll look like Elizabeth Taylor.
The first sunless tanner was introduced by Coppertone in the 60s.
I remember this stuff.
Do you, the QT?
Oh, I bought a bottle of it one time, and it did make your skin turn orange. Yeah. And did you peel?
I did. And
Peeling what? We used to like peeling,
because
actually.
then you would peel your skin.
That was so fun.
Oh, now that kind of
And
gets
if you
me.
could get a really big
Okay.
chunk all at once,
La la la, too
like a
much.
big piece,
I know. Stop.
make a lampshade out
Like
of
a
it.
lampshade, I know. And then Hawaiian Tropic that I mentioned earlier to achieve the darkest tan that you could possibly get during the summer months.
Yeah. I've also read in here vegetable shortening. Have you ever heard of anybody putting Crisco on themselves?
I've heard of it. I never knew anyone that did it.
No, it doesn't seem
It sounds
Good.
wrong.
somehow
It sounds really
like you're
wrong.
greasing up a turkey.
I know. I don't know. I do remember this though, sun lamps, because we had one. My mother would use the sun lamps.
We had one for a while.
And she had those little goggles, the little old-fashioned swimming goggles,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
she would lay under the sun lamp and get a tan. I thought that was for restorative purposes also, not necessarily.
There was talk that if you had acne, that a sun lamp would help to dry up your acne scars or your acne the pimples.
The pimples
I don't know if
themselves.
that was true or not, but that's what they were saying back in the 60s.
That makes sense.
Well, I don't know if it.
I mean, it makes sense. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
true or
I don't know
not,
if it's
but
true or not.
I don't know. But,
Did you ever use one of those reflectors?
No.
Those are dumb.
People had a routine. They would bring those foils, and they would bring all the other paraphernalia to the swimming pool, to the beach, to just lay in the sun all day.
All day long, yeah.
All day.
Well, now we know.
White, porcelain white. I'm going with that.
Go with that.
I'm keeping
You're
it.
making a look out of it.
I'm keeping it, folks.
All right. Next up, America becomes fascinated with a new way of sleeping. It's the story of the waterbed. Now, the waterbed got its start in California in the late 60s. Charlie Hall was a design student at San Francisco State University. And apparently he had been trying to design a chair, like a big beanbag chair, and he filled it with cornstarch, I think.
Cornstarch.
And then he also tried filling it with Jell-O. Apparently neither of these chairs really worked out as a terrific design idea. So then he decided to try a mattress, filling it with water. He presented his water-filled mattress at his master's thesis one evening in 1968, and according to him, the entire class spent the rest of the evening frolicking on
I know.
on the waterbed. I don't know if he meant by frolicking. I'm assuming they were just having fun, but maybe more happened on the waterbed. We don't know. Anyway, the waterbed was born that night in 1968. He went on to create a business out of the waterbed invention that he had made. He sold waterbeds to members of Jefferson Airplane and to Hugh Hefner, among other celebrities.
That makes sense.
So once Hugh Hefner has a waterbed,
Then
you got to have one.
another icon that makes something popular, right?
Exactly. So then it started taking off. In 1971, the waterbed display at the Bloomingdale's department store was a popular singles meeting place. So the story goes. So if you wanted to meet singles, go to Bloomingdale's, hang out by the waterbeds.
My brother had one.
What was his experience with the waterbed? Did you feel that he enjoyed it?
That's such a weird question. I don't know. It was so popular.
Did you try it out?
I did, but I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get nauseous because it
is-
feels
it
like
was wavy.
It's wavy. It feels like if you took a boat out on the ocean, and you were stationary in the boat, and it just waited for the waves.
It did this movement. Yeah.
And it could be, it could affect a lot of people depending on your equilibrium and your balance. I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting. It was supposed to also, I believe, help you sleep better because of the weight, of being on the water.
People swore by it as a thing to sleep on, although you had to keep the water warm because you could be very cold. You could freeze to death in it if you didn't have it heated.
Yeah.
And of course, the claim was that two things are better on a waterbed. One of them is sleep, is what they used to say.
I would think the sex would, the waterbed would help.
It seems like you'd have to constantly be grabbing for the side.
Well, it helps with motion. It helps with perpetual motion.
I don't know. Well, their popularity eventually waned. These things were heavy. They could leak. They would make sloshing noises as you'd roll over. Apparently, you could grow some algae in there, which isn't good.
No.
Unless you put some Clorox into the waterbed. Just so many problems. You couldn't have them in an apartment building because if the floor wasn't, secure enough, the whole waterbed could fall through into the next apartment. It wasn't so good. But anyway, so time passes. Waterbeds lose their popularity. And then in 2012... they kind of come back, but this time they are waterbeds for cows.
And deservedly so.
Apparently, waterbeds for cows help reduce sores and infections when they sleep on a waterbed rather than on the beds of traditional materials like wood chips. Just telling you what I read.
Maybe that's why the meat or the milk tastes better. Possibly. Think about it.
Oh. Because they slept on a waterbed.
Right.
If the cow gets a good night's sleep, you get a better steak.
Right? It's massaged. What is it? It's like the Kobe beef. Because it would be the American version of Kobe beef because it would be massaged.
Okay, finally it's time for our quiz, Lauren. So we're going to take you back to 1978.
Okay.
Did you go to a lot of movies back then?
I did.
Did you know all the big stars?
Oh, you know I did.
Did you follow the movie magazine stories about everybody? Okay. Well, let's hope you did.
Oh, gosh.
Today we're looking for the top 10 box office stars of 1978. When you recognize the actor, shout it out.
Okay.
Okay? Here we go. She's a hugely successful singer turned actress, and in 1978 she was preparing to release a film with Ryan O'Neal called The Main Event. And
Barbra Streisand.
Correct. Best known as Inspector Clouseau in the Pink Panther series, this actor was about to release
Peter Sellers.
That's right. In 1978, she just finished the film Fun with Dick and Jane, as well as co-starring
Jane Fonda.
That's right. In 1978, this next actress did the gloomiest movie of her otherwise comedic career. Interiors was directed by her one-time boyfriend Woody Allen, with
Mia Farrow,
with whom she co-starred in a variety of films, including Annie Hall.
Oh, Diane Keaton.
Coming in at number 6, this actor started as a stand-up comedian and a writer. He would go on to direct nearly all his own films, including many with his one-time girlfriend, Diane Keaton.
Oh, Woody Allen. You gave that to me.
I know.
Totally thank you for the gift.
It turned out that way. Our number 5 was best known as the cool male lead of action films, dramas, and westerns, but in 1978 he changed gears and did the comedy Every Which Way But Loose. He starred in 42 films, including Dirty Harry.
Oh, Clint Eastwood.
This good-looking actor was a Hollywood Lothario who in 1978 starred in the romantic comedy remake Heaven Can Wait.
Oh, Warren Beatty.
Very good. In 1978, this actor took home an Oscar for his performance in the romantic comedy The Goodbye Girl,
Richard Dreyfuss.
That's right. In 1978, this actor had one of the most iconic roles of his career, playing Danny Zuko in the musical film Grease. He would later star
John Travolta.
That's right. Okay.
You're
90%.
I told you last week I would. Okay.
This was the number 1 box office star of 1978. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This actor did a small budget comedy that particular year with Dom DeLuise called The End, but he was most well known for films like Smokey and the Bandit and Deliverance.
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds. Congratulations. You did good. Last week you said you were going to get 100%.
And I don't lie, Bob. I come through. I come prepared.
You came through.
Wow.
All right, folks, that's it for another episode of That Was the Way It Was. Be sure to subscribe, rate and review if you can, and, download us wherever you get your podcasts.
That's right.
Where can people find us, Lauren?
They can find us everywhere, but especially on thatwasthewayitwas.com. That was. No, wait a minute. Let me
That's
just
the
tell
most
you.
important part.
I know. Don't mess with me. I'll tell you, Bob, where people can find us.
Yeah, where can they
Where
find
they can
us?
find us?
Yeah.
On thatwasthewayitwas.com.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.